Because if you want to see college football highlights or like the Blazers scores or something, we have excellent sportscasts for that. You know that.
Once in a while, though, we do sports. And tonight, when we're talking about sports, keep in mind we'll do it a little differently because we're actually going to be talking about women at work. See, this morning, the National Women's Soccer League, they decided to move their championship game out of our city, out of Portland. They're going to play it instead in Louisville, Kentucky. They say they're honoring a request from players. See, the players have been putting a lot of pressure on the NWSL and the Portland Thorns to make a lot of changes after an investigation found earlier this month that it detailed years of sexual coercion and abuse by a former Thorns coach, Paul Riley, who you see there. Now, the NWSL didn't explicitly say that they were moving the game because of Paul Riley and those allegations, which we should note he denied. They mentioned that Portland was initially the only venue that actually wanted to host this game and that by moving it to Louisville, they'd be able to start the game a little later in the day, which would work better for everybody, they said. But they did mention that they've made progress in the last week on issues around player safety and transparency and moving the league in a new direction. But keep these issues in mind as we move to our next sports story. Former Nike runner Mary Cain is suing both Nike and her former coach Alberto Salazar for $20 million because of the physical and emotional abuse she says she endured when she was a teenage athlete for the Nike Oregon Project. She talked about it to the New York Times, all about it in 2019. Listen here.
Alberto was constantly trying to get me to lose weight. He created an arbitrary number of 114 pounds, and he would usually weigh me in front of my teammates and publicly shame me if I wasn't hitting weight. He wanted to give me birth control pills and diuretics to lose weight, the latter of which isn't allowed in track and field. This Nike team was the top running program in the country. And yet we had no certified sports psychologist, there was no certified nutritionist. It was really just a bunch of people who were Alberto's friends. So when I went to anybody for help, they would always just tell me the same thing, and that was to listen to Alberto.
Now listen, Cain says the things she went through were horrific. She was screamed at over gaining weight. She broke bones because she was malnourished. She even had to steal food from her teammates because she was being underfed. We talked to Cain's lawyer about these issues at the center of this case.
Right. This is really about the exploitation of young female athletes and how, as a community, we're not going to tolerate that anymore. Well, without a doubt, it's going to draw attention to coaching techniques and the companies who hire athletes for their own profit and their own growth, and bringing to the forefront that the women are at the center of this and that the women's health and well-being need to be the focus, not just the win, not just the profit.
Now, we've reached out to Nike about this. Lots of journalists have. They say they're not going to comment on the lawsuit. In both Mary Cain's case and the National Women's Soccer League, female athletes say they were abused by their boss while they were at work. And it's not like the men who they say abused them suddenly woke up and saw the error of their ways and decided to change their behavior. Changes have only been happening because these women started speaking up about it. Now, those men and those companies are facing consequences. I mean, in Nike's case, a huge lawsuit. In the Thorns case, people have lost their jobs, and now the championship game has been moved across the country.
It's about the employee and their well-being first and foremost. It has to be the bottom line. That has to be every company's bottom line. And companies can't pay lip service to it. They can't have that be their motto and then not act according to their motto, or put out marketing that, women are the center and to be supported and praised, but they actually have to follow through on that by providing the services that the humans, the men and women, need to be their best selves.
Now, one more sports story before we move on, because this one is definitely worth your time. This story involves former Blazers president Larry Miller and a stunning admission that he made on the pages of Sports Illustrated. Miller admitted to killing a man when he was a teenager. He says he kept the secret for 56 years as he built his life through the sports and business world. But when he was 16 years old, he shot and killed someone who he believed was a rival gang member in Philadelphia. He went to prison for this, and that's where he resumed his education. And when he got out, he decided to keep that secret so that he could rebuild his life. He eventually held a series of huge jobs: the president of Nike basketball, the Jordan brand, the Portland Trail Blazers. But he says that secret haunted him, giving him nightmares and migraines, and finally he decided to tell his story. He says he missed out on an opportunity to mentor young people and people who have been incarcerated. But now he plans to change that. He told Sports Illustrated, quote, "It's really about making sure that people understand that formerly incarcerated people can make a contribution, and that a person's mistake, or the worst mistake they made in their life, shouldn't control what happens with the rest of their life. If I could go back and undo it, I would absolutely do that. I can't. So all I can do is try to do what I can to help other people and try to maybe prevent this from happening to someone else."